So, week 2 of our Advent season of Waiting with Hope through Dark Times. And this week's theme is Into Liberation, with a really striking image there. So, Rick, talk to us about the painting for this week.
So this painting, there's a screen print of hands bound in chains, and there's a padlock with a key in the lock, and the padlock is open. And for each of these paintings, I've done a screen print, so that I made these by hand. It's not printed on a computer, which is quite important to me. I quite like the hand of the artist to make things. And then just painted over with kind of gestural marks and strokes. And so these lines are going through and just opening up the padlock. And the hands are struggling, actually. They're not. They're struggling to get out of the chains. And if you could talk to the person, you'd say, "Why are you struggling? The padlock's open."
Right.
Yeah. Why are you struggling? And maybe that's one of the questions this poses to me. You know, revisiting this work, and why are you struggling? What are you struggling against that's holding you back? That's constraining you? Maybe there's another way to look, or maybe other people can see that what you think are the chains that are holding you and binding you are actually, you know, that it's not locked. We are free.
Interesting. So it's like the perception then that you think that you are enslaved, but actually there is a key to not being. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a strong theme.
Yeah. And that's the truth. We are free. And I realize I speak from a place of relative privilege, but we are free in that still space of the soul. What that means as we live it out in our lives will mean all kinds of different things. And there are places of struggle. Maybe the struggle is not for our own freedom, but for other people's freedom. And actually, we don't need to struggle for our own freedom, just to wait and be, and we are free. But we do need to struggle for other people's freedom.
So true, isn't it? It's some stuff that I've been reading and thinking about a bit about the fact that, you know, a lot of the problems in the world are almost a projection of the problem that is in each side, every person. You know, that we are our own prison if we do not seek the liberation and the integration and the well-being within us. I was also struck by Ian's little word for this one in his poem, where it strengthens, love your enemies as friends. Easy to say, very difficult to do. So there's this whole, I'm hearing this sense of, there's almost like this inner discipline of freedom and inner discipline of deciding to live counterculturally to the way things are, is a really important theme.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, that kind of projection of our sense of a lack of freedom onto other people, and I think that's a source of so much dis-ease and disunity, and just the places where there's a lack of freedom in community, and when we meet other people, and in systems and the way institutions work as well, that these are kind of projections of our own sense of inadequacy. I mean, if you look at what, you know, the kind of tantrums that Trump is playing out in America, these are projections of his own personal lack of freedom. You know, it's his own stuff, but because he's in such a position, that projects itself out over the whole world. But we see that played out in institutions, we see that played out in communities, we see that played out in families, where, you know, people project out, and we all do it, you know, project out these things that we're struggling with internally, and because we can't face it in ourselves, we then project it onto other people and have to attack it in other people and have to bring other people down or constrain other people in some way.
Mm. So there's something about thinking about the season of Advent then, isn't there? Something about discipline, about working towards that sense of inner freedom and awareness of our freedom, which is not a freedom to consume. That's, I think, where, you know, some of our reactions about COVID that we find very difficult. I mean, legitimately, some people are really struggling in huge poverty and deprivation, and I get that. But I think some of us are so born into a market society that we're angry that we can't consume is an issue, and that isn't freedom. Just a freedom to spend, you know. Is that so there's some really big theme here for Advent for us to face.
And it starts with that waiting and stillness and self-knowledge, because the self-knowledge only comes from when we actually calm down and still ourselves and really start to notice, hang on, what are these internal forces? Where when I feel that that struggle inside, rather than just saying, oh, it's because that person annoyed me or I'm angry at that, just wait and really still ourselves and allow grace, allow the Spirit to teach and say, okay, hang on, what is this really? You know, what is this really saying about who I am and what I'm really struggling with, about what I'm really struggling about my sense of self, or what I'm afraid of, or what I'm angry about. And it's only from that place of genuine self-knowledge and self-awareness that we can really move, and the padlock does fall off, and we realize, hang on, no, I was free all along.
Thanks, Rick. That's great.